Hello. Happy Friday. Happy Friday, Ben. It was Friday, right? Yes, it's Friday. What am I doing? Of course it's Friday. I see farmhouse. Well, that's okay. I need a moment or two anyways. One thing that I need to do is edit the description of the stream, because we have chosen a book. Sharkies have arrived. Hello. Happy Friday, Sharkies. How are you? You have nachos. Nice. Very nice. I just had some ramen from a place nearby that's pretty good. A little chicken broth, pork chashu, some bamboo shoots, a soft-boiled egg. Not a seasoned one though, just a soft-boiled egg. And some nori seaweed. Was it marinated? Maybe I was not paying enough attention. So I am actually pretty full right now. Sharkies, don't think you've ever properly gone for ramen. Done other noodle dishes at restaurants, but not ramen. There is a place in North Richmond called G-Men Ramen. That's not where this is from, but that's a small shop, cozy. Assuming it's still there, I'm pretty sure it is. But they've got this, it's Tan Tan Ramen, which has sort of a spicy peanut sauce. It's really good. And like Farmo says, they also have a location in Steveston, yeah. Although sometimes I think their hours are a little odd, so make sure you check ahead of time if you're going to go to one of them. It's G-MEN, G-Men Ramen. But, yeah, sometimes their hours seemed a little weird. I feel like the picture quality still looks a little odd to me. Like maybe it's slightly zoomed in? I wonder. I don't know. Farmer saying our house got assessed yesterday. Was it weird? Yeah, it was fine. Our realtor is very nice and very professional. And she came in and we were looking for suggestions for what to do with our house before we put it up on the market and everything. So we're planning on having, some painters come in and things like that. So, she was just suggesting neutral colors, right? And to basically, we have a lot of knickknacks and things in our house. And so, put all of that away, everything small. And not just because of the way it looks, but also because there's people coming into the house, and sometimes maybe they'll bring kids with them, or if she does an open house, she can't necessarily keep track of everybody at once. So it was partly just so our stuff stays safe, which was something I guess I hadn't really considered. Slightly stupid bear, hey, highlighting a message. We can do that now. How's it going, bear? Carl says she did not judge our messiness or geekiness, not verbally. So we have just started Bear, Magician's Gambit by David Eddings, and by just started I mean on Wednesday I did a longer than I expected recap of the previous two books, and we read the prologue, which is almost more like a history for the world. So you haven't missed any of the story of this particular book. Though you have missed the story probably of the previous two books. So my recap exists, though it took like 45 minutes. And of course, I've actually read the previous two books on this stream, and they're up on YouTube as well, just under the same name. If you're ever looking for something to listen to, they're a lot of fun. So what is new with Mr. Bear? Wanting to price our house more or less where we expected, yeah. Yeah, it sounds like if we had been looking to sell our house earlier in the year, January, February range, there was a bit more of a frenzied market. So since then, prices have been declining, which honestly is good. It's not, necessarily good for us, but I can look past us and say it's good in general. I know the housing market is ridiculous. And we'll still be most likely making money over what we bought the house for. Mr. Bear is doing well at work all weekend. Struck by a case of plumbing issues at home. Oh boy, that's a pain. I'm sorry. That's never fun to deal with. At least I don't see it that way. Maybe it's fun for some people. Anyone who plumbs as a hobby? Can you imagine someone being like, "Ah, yes, clogged toilets. Now's a chance to strut my stuff. Bust the tools out. This is going to be a fun weekend." Fun for the plumber when they get paid, yeah. We've got, 9 or 10 days. Our next couple of weeks are going to be very busy because basically we'll be having photographers coming in to take pictures of our house in about 9 or 10 days. So we need to get our house in sellable condition by then. So we're going to be packing like crazy and having, painters come in and probably some renovators for 1 or 2 smaller jobs. You'll have Mario and Luigi going to town on your wall and pipes on Monday or Tuesday. Mario, and Luigi Mario. No, we haven't. We're gonna sell our house first. Put our stuff into storage, sell the house, put ourselves into temporary, conditions, most likely. And basically, once our house is up on the market, we're going to start looking for a new place. But we want to make sure we find the right place so we're not rushing to buy. And we don't want to find a new place and then sell because we don't want to rush to sell either, I guess. So, yeah, human storage. And yeah, like Farmos is saying, if the market is currently slowing down, if we can sell while it's on the way down and buy when it's even lower, then hey, maybe we'll come out ahead in terms of what kind of place we get to live in. And Dog, who is in his bed right now. Isn't that right, Binnabon Bean? What? I guess he's a little sleepy. Yeah. So that's kind of how our Thursday went, was kind of having the real estate agent over and figuring out what will need to be done. This green wall here is probably going to go to more of this sort of beigey type color. Hope we find something suitable in the meantime. The rental market is worse than the housing market. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're going to look at like an Airbnb, because we're not looking for too long term, hopefully. So I'm not sure what sort of the short-term rental is going to be like. Arma says this has been Binnabic's first home. Yeah, he came straight here from Korea, where he was rescued. So I don't know if he had much of a home prior to that. With dinner, we had a little bit of a Korean black raspberry wine. It's very tasty. We've had it before. It smells very nice. It's very fruity and like sweet. Like it's a very sweet tasting wine. And maybe a little bit sort of like almost syrupy. That's not quite right, but almost syrupy. Moved twice with the cat, and he's been unimpressed for about a week each time. Unimpressed is a good way of describing a cat. I don't think Pup's gonna have too much trouble. I think he'll probably have a great time, and then start to get anxious about wanting to go back home, back here. Because he definitely, is used to life here, right? He's got his routines and things like that. So I imagine he'll probably be fine for like close to a week. And then he'll probably get a little anxious for a while. And then he'll probably get past that, and, then he will get past that, and he'll get used to the new place. Yeah, that's true. Furniture and stuff, I'm sure he will. And there won't be other people around all the time, like if we visit people, right? I think eventually he kind of wants some time away from others. Or maybe that's just me projecting. And then we took him camping. He may have thought that was our new home now. Is it only one time? Ah, yeah, right. We did day trips out to like campsites before that. Right. Yes, chipmunks. Yeah. There were chipmunks at a campsite we went to, and he had a great time chasing them because they would come into like our camp area, and so anytime they came into the camp area, he'd chase them out. But I don't think he really wanted to catch them because if he started to get too close to them, he would kind of slow down a little bit. So I think he just wanted to chase, but wanted to let them get away. He, yeah. Mr. Sharky's cousin takes his cat camping. Does he have like an enclosure, or does the cat just stay on a leash the whole time? How does that work? Or is the cat just trained enough to stay close? I don't know. Even if that were the case, I don't think I would be comfortable letting a cat wander at a campsite. He has an old Volkswagen camper. I think outside that he's on a leash. Ah, nice. Volkswagen campers are great. Yeah. Just trying to compare like the way Dino and Cat look in person to the way they look on the screen to see if it seems correct. I do think maybe the picture is a little wide. If they weren't expensive, having a camper would be awesome. I wonder whether the new electric Volkswagen vans are going to be actually any good as campers, because that would be pretty cool. They don't look exactly right. Like they did this the sort of making it look a little more sleek kind of thing, which I almost wish they had made them look identical to the old Volkswagen vans. But they still look pretty cool. Something tells me they're going to be a little hard to obtain, though. I wonder whether or not Book Spurs and Booze will be joining us tonight. Hope they're doing okay. Well, it's just about 20 after 7, so to avoid a repeat of Wednesday of starting super late, we should probably read a little bit of this book, huh? Should bring it over this side. I'm not used to having the text on screen. Yay, book! Book 3 of the Belgariad, Magician's Gambit, by David Eddings. So, we spent Wednesday doing a very long recap of books 1 and 2. And we read the prologue. I missed the dedication at the beginning, which, I don't want to skip that. It says, "For Dorothy, who has the enduring grace to put up with Eddings' men, and for Wayne, for reasons we both understand but could never be put into words." If that's Mr. Wolf on the left of the pic, it looks like he's wearing jeggings. I don't think it is. I think I know who that is. I don't think it's Mr. Wolf. No, it definitely wouldn't be, because Mr. Wolf is always described as having a short gray beard, like short cropped, which he itches at frequently. That does not look to me like a short cropped gray beard. Yeah, it could have been Queen of Sorcery we were reading. It probably was. Yeah, this is the previous book for the Belgariad. Quick change book. With the cover art that isn't entirely accurate. That snake statue should be way bigger. Barmos thought I was saying I wasn't totally sure that they weren't jeggings. That's true. Illustrations are frequently inaccurate. However, I do think I know who that character is. I don't think it's Mr. Wolf. So, as we found on Wednesday, our maps for Marigore are slightly different between the Sharky's version and mine. Where the map in mine is by Shelley, I think. Shelley Shapiro. And the Sharky's map is probably by Chris Barbieri. And they're similar, but there are minor differences in them, which is a little odd. Sharky's once read that Tamara Pierce really fought for covers of the Alana series to not look the side of an 80s van. What? Why? If I were going to write a book, I think I would fight for it to look like the side of an 80s van. Bear says often probably because the publishers only breeze through the book and don't always do justice for the cover art. Well, yeah, I suppose the thing is going to be that, it's going to be a cover artist. In this case, it is Lawrence Schwinger. And, they're going to be commissioned probably, I don't know, maybe the author is responsible. I don't know if the author or the publisher would be for something like this. And then I'm guessing they're given, a description of what is wanted, right? Farmhouse making the "what time is it, Mr. Wolf" joke. Would imagine she didn't want the character to be too sexualized as women are on. Oh yeah, that's fair. That is definitely fair. He looks at many books for a living and think it's more they go with what sells a feeling, whether it's close to the story or not. And yeah, that's... Well, and what do you think of the differences between modern cover art and, 70s, 80s, 90s cover art? I feel like modern cover art very frequently is a lot more minimalist. Just sort of colors, shapes, maybe silhouettes or something like that. With a lot less detail. Sure, you say modern gives away less of the storyline. Oh, that's a good point. Bear says it's got to be a flashy cover that grabs attention. Depends on the situation. Sometimes author, sometimes pubs. Hmm. Modern has definitely gotten away from having the like plot synopsis on the back of the book. Like these all have the, some kind of plot synopsis. And honestly, I, almost never read them until I've finished the book when there is a synopsis because, or, whatever, because very frequently I've come across the back of the cover, plot lines that spell out like 3/4 of the plot. Like there'll be spoilers of there in there for things that happen I've seen like 3/4 of the way into the story. I hate that. Ugh. Yeah, some of those are real bad. Covers that look like, so a kid's fantasy novel might try to be reminiscent of I can't believe it's not Harry Potter. No, it's just, this book was awesome. Some guy that used to work for the New York Times. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Instead of this book was awesome, Piers Anthony, which was every book from the 80s and 90s. Maybe even this one? Yep. Yep, there it is. Right there. Eddings Belgariad is exactly the kind of fantasy I like. It has magic, adventure, humor, mystery, and a certain delightful human insight. Piers Anthony. Or Pierre, I don't know. Oh, boy. And then above that, Anne McCaffrey, whose opinion I respect slightly more. All right. Piers like Pierce. Hmm. All right. Why don't we get into chapter 1? Everybody ready? So where we left, like right where Queen of Sorcery ended, was after our boy Garion being rescued from the palace of the Serpent Queen by his aunt and by Barak. Barak, I think, was ready to run himself onto his sword, if I'm correct. Yes, he was. Barak. Ha, nice. And Aunt Pole put a stop to that by letting him know that he probably by now has a newborn son. And then Silk and Mr. Wolf returned from their attempt to track down the orb and Zedar. Somehow, Mr. Wolf's arm had been broken. It is honestly a slightly creepy bear emote. Anyways, according to Mr. Wolf, Zedar crossed into Cthul Murgos. Ktuchik was waiting for him. Now Ktuchik has the orb. And so Aunt Pole had asked... Slightly stupid bear's unfortunate cousin, slightly creepy bear. Nice. Our Garion is coming along, said Nanny. He's not so angsty now. I don't know about that. It's supposed to be... Oh, Golden Compass Bear. Ah, that's a helmet. I couldn't make that out from the picture. With heart eyes. I know, I noticed the heart eyes. Oh, his dark materials. Anyways, Aunt Pole was asking, are we going to be able to cut him off before he gets to Rat Cthul with it? To To which Mr. Wolf replied, "I doubt it. Anyway, we have to go to the Vale first." Because Aldor had summoned them. And that's when we found out that the way that Mr. Wolf's arm had gotten broken was a tree fell on him. Nothing glamorous, no fights, no, jumping out of windows or anything like that. Just a tree fell on him. So, that brings us to where we are now, after the prologue. Part 1, Maragor. Why would they be going into Maragor, you ask? Maragor is haunted, as we have heard. Nothing in Maragor but ghosts. My map makes Maragor also look a little swampy. Probably not as extreme as Nyssa. Armo says, "Oh no, ghosts!" Ruh-roh, Reggie. So, it looks like they were in Nyssa, which is down here to the southwest. So they are probably traveling in a northeasterly direction. If we look on our full map, right, because Aragorn was to the east of Tol Nidra, and Nyssa is to the south of Tol Nidra, so that all holds up. And yes, Maragor does lie between Nyssa and the Vale of Aldor. So we've got down here, Nyssa, then sort of in the crease of the book is Maragor, and then up here, more north than east, right there, is the Vale of Aldor. But it does also look like there are quite a few mountains in the way. We've also got the Tower, and what is that? Some kind of stronghold, just the stronghold. Because Algaria is up here, so that would be the Algarian stronghold that we have heard about in the past. Looks kind of like an alien smiley face. What does Maragor? Is that what you're talking about? Oh, the Vale of Aldor. V-A-L-E, Vale, as in valley. Alien smiley face? It's got like 3 dots above a line. I don't think I'm... Are you looking at the tree? Because there's... Right there, there's a tree. Ah, okay. I see. Yeah, that's a tree. Bear says more books should have fold-out maps. Yeah, I agree with that. The tree looks like an alien smiley face. Okay, yes, I see what you mean. Now I've gone all blurry from bringing the book to and from the foreground. Back here. Focus on me and the book. Way back here. Need to get a camera that, like, is better at autofocusing. Or that has some kind of manual focus even. That might be even better. I'm going to close this for a moment, see if that helps. But I'm still here. I'm still talking. Even though the screen is dark. Hey, here I am. No, that didn't want to do it. Thought it might. Well, let's try the old standard. Look at the palm of my hand. Tell me my fortune. I think my fortune is to be out of focus. Oh well. You don't need to see me to hear me. So I'm going to start Chapter 1. Chapter 1 of Magician's Gambit, Part 1, Marigore. Here we go. Ready? Her Imperial Highness, Princess Senedra, jewel of the House of Borun, and the loveliest flower of the Tolnadran Empire, sat cross-legged on a sea chest in the oak-beamed cabin beneath the stern of Captain Greldick's ship, nibbling thoughtfully on the end of a tendril of her coppery hair as she watched the Lady Polgara attend to the broken arm of Belgarath the sorcerer. The princess Zoltan. The princess wore a short, pale green dryad tunic, and there was a smudge of ash on one of her cheeks. On the deck above, she could hear the measured beat of the drum that paced the oar strokes of Greldick's sailors as they rowed upstream from the ash-choked city of Sthis Tor, because a mountain had erupted. Probably a volcano, based on the word erupted. Sharky says, the parent in me wants to say, stop chewing your hair. That's an interesting, persistent character trait of hers. Come on, focus up back here. Look. Back here. Maybe I'll just sit closer. It was all absolutely dreadful, she decided. What had begun as merely another move in the interminable game of authority and rebellion against it that she had been playing with her father, the Emperor, for as long as she could remember, had suddenly turned deadly serious. She had never really intended for things to go this far when she and Master Jeebers had crept from the imperial palace in Tol Honeth that night so many weeks ago. Jeebers had soon deserted her. He had been no more than a temporary convenience anyway. And now she was caught up with this strange group of grim-faced people. Getting the keywords in chat. I need to have something slightly more contrasting right here so it's easy to see the text. If I have the book up, it makes it almost harder to read the chat. The strange group of grim-faced people from the north, in a quest she could not even understand. The Lady Polgara, whose very name sent a chill through the princess, had rather bluntly informed her in the Wood of the Dryads that the game was over, and that no evasion, wheedling, or coaxing would alter the fact that she, Princess Senedra, would stand in the hall of the Revan King on her 16th birthday, in chains if necessary. Sharky say someone's got a flying start to their bingo card already. Yeah, I feel like we need sort of overall bingo cards, just, general ones. Maybe that's something I should start putting together before we start new books. We'll have like an all-purpose bingo card for things like Grimm, Bard, maybe even Teen Angst, maybe. And then we'll have more specific ones for the book we're going to read. Garion gets kidnapped. I should do that. Sharkies are in. Senedra knew, with absolute certainty, that Lady Polgara had meant exactly that. And she had a momentary vision of being dragged, clanking and rattling in her chains, to stand in total humiliation in that grim hall, oh boy, while hundreds of bearded Alorns laughed at her. That had to be avoided at any cost. And so it had been that she had accompanied them, not willingly, perhaps, but never openly rebellious. The hint of steel in Lady Polgara's eyes always seemed to carry with it the suggestion of manacles and clinking chains. And that suggestion cowed the princess into obedience, far more than all the imperial power her father possessed had ever been able to do. The bearded bards berated her. When we read The Hobbit, the character of Bard was very frequently referred to as being grim. And so it kind of got to the point where the word grim and the name Bard became almost synonymous. And so now every time, I don't know, since then it's kind of been, the word grim has been popping out at us like, oh, they're grim, are they? It's grim, is it? You start to notice just how frequently the word grim is used in fantasy novels. And so every time the word grim comes up, everyone goes, Bard! Sinedra had only the faintest idea of what these people were doing. Sharky thinks it's been in every book on the stream since, probably multiple times. They seemed to be following someone or something, and the trail had led them here into the snake-infested swamps of Nyssa. Murgos seemed to be somehow involved, throwing frightful obstacles in their path, and Queen Selmisra also seemed to take an interest, even going so far as to have young Garion abducted. Now this is talking about something that happened in the past, so I don't know if that counts for the bingo card. Something else that I find interesting about this chapter, I think this is maybe the second chapter that's been from Sinedra's point of view. Maybe the second, maybe the third. But that makes it also probably only the second or third chapter that has not been from Garion's perspective, or following Garion anyways. I think the only person that has had chapters from their perspective other than Garion is Sinedra. And considering she's a relatively recent addition to the story, that's kind of interesting. So, even going so far as to have young Garion abducted. Sinedra interrupted her musing to look across the cabin at the boy. Why would the Queen of Nyssa want him? He was so ordinary. He was a peasant, a scullion, a nobody. He was a nice enough boy, certainly, with rather plain sandy hair that kept tumbling down across his forehead, making her fingers itch to push it back. He had a nice enough face, in a plain sort of way, and he was somebody she could talk to when she was lonely or frightened, and somebody she could fight with when she felt peevish, since he was only slightly older than she was. But he completely refused to treat her with the respect due her. He probably didn't even know how. Why all this excruciating interest in him? She pondered that, looking thoughtfully at him. She was doing it again. Angrily, she jerked her eyes from his face. Why was she always watching him? Each time her thoughts wandered, her eyes automatically sought out his face. And it wasn't really that exciting a face to look at. She had even caught herself making up excuses to put herself into places where she could watch him. It was stupid. Sinedra nibbled at her hair and thought, and nibbled some more, until once again her eyes went back to their minute study of Garion's features.
Is he going to be all right?
Barak, the Earl of Trelheim, rumbled, tugging absently at his great red beard as he watched the Lady Polgara put the finishing touches on Belgarath's sling. "It's a simple break," she replied professionally, putting away her bandages, "and the old fool heals fast." Sinedra nibbled her hair and nibbled some more, until once again she was bald. Belgarath winced as he shifted his newly splinted arm. Let's see if I remember correctly.
You didn't have to be so rough, Paul.
His rust-colored old tunic showed several dark mud smears and a new rip, evidence of his encounter with a tree. "It had to be set, Father," she told him. "You didn't want it to heal crooked, did you?"
I think you actually enjoyed it,
he accused. "Next time you can set it yourself," she suggested coolly, smoothing her gray dress. Gray? She's not wearing blue. Ah! I'm in focus again.
I need a drink,
Belgarath grumbled to the hulking Barak. I think a little too high tone. The Earl of Trelheim went to the narrow door.
Would you have a tankard of ale brought for Belgarath?
He asked the sailor outside. Blue faded to gray. I don't think Aunt Pole would ever wear faded clothes.
How is he?
The sailor inquired.
Bad-tempered,
Barak replied.
And he'll probably get worse if he doesn't get a drink pretty soon. I'll go at once,
the sailor said.
Wise decision.
Kurone Koakuma. We are reading Magician's Gambit by David Eddings. And we've only just gotten started. We're on chapter 1, so welcome. Farmos thinks she's trying to be less conspicuous or something, or maybe she's just wearing traveling clothes. They are on a ship, after all, on a river. I can call you Kuma. You can call me Sleet. Welcome, Kuma. Yeah, we read books. We've read, this is, I think, our 6th book on this stream. We've jumped through a few series, but this is book 3 of the Belgariad, and you have arrived right for the beginning of it. Let's see. This was yet another confusing thing for Sinedra. The noblemen in their party all treated this shabby-looking old man with enormous respect. But so far as she could tell, he didn't even have a title. She could determine with exquisite precision the exact difference between a baron and a general of the imperial legions, between a Grand Duke of Tolnedra and a Crown Prince of Erendia, between the Revan Warder and the King of the Chereks. But she had not the faintest idea where sorcerers fit in. Oh, hi. Hi, puppy. This has been a bit... You want a treat? hidden. You're the star of the show. And you don't like it. I suppose you want to come up. No, he doesn't. You gonna lay down there? I'll try and keep you in shot. This is Bin-Bin-A-Kegabinik, or Binabic, or Bin. Bin is probably the easiest. B-I-N. She had not the faintest idea where sorcerers fit in. The materially oriented mind of Tolnedra refused even to admit that sorcerers existed. Oh, and he's off. All right. Roscoe says hello. Is that Roscoe? Yeah, I've got to make a Binabic emote for sure. The materially oriented mind of Tolnedra refused even to admit that sorcerers existed. While it was quite true that Lady Polgara, with titles from half the kingdoms of the West, was the most respected woman in the world, Belgarath was a vagabond, a vagrant, quite frequently a public nuisance. And Garion, she reminded herself, was his grandson. "I think it's time you told us what happened, Father," Lady Polgara was saying to her patient.
"I'd really rather not talk about it," he replied shortly.
She turned to Prince Keldar, the peculiar little Drasnian nobleman with the sharp face and sardonic wit, who lounged on a bench with an impudent expression on his face. "Well, Silk?" she asked him. "I'm sure you can see my position, old friend," the prince apologized to Belgarath with a great show of regret. "If I try to keep secrets, she'll only force things out of me. Unpleasantly, I imagine." Belgarath looked at him with a stony face, then snorted with disgust. "It's not that I want to say anything, you realize." Belgarath turned away. "I knew you'd understand."
"The story, Silk!"
Barak insisted impatiently. "It's really very simple," Keldar told him.
"But you're going to complicate it, right?"
"Just tell us what happened, Silk," Polgara said. The Drasnian sat up on his bench. "It's not really much of a story," he began. "We located Zedar's trail and followed it down into Nyissa about 3 weeks ago. We had a few encounters with some Nyissan border guards. Nothing very serious. Anyway, the trail of the orb turned east almost as soon as it crossed the border. That was a surprise. Zedar had been headed for Nyissa with so much single-mindedness that we'd both assumed that he'd made some kind of arrangement with Salmisra. Maybe that's what he wanted everyone to think. He's very clever, and Salmisra's notorious for involving herself in things that don't really concern her. I've attended to that, Lady Polgara said, somewhat grimly, somewhat bardically.
"What happened?"
Belgarath asked her. "I'll tell you about it later, Father. Go on, Silk." Silk shrugged. "There isn't a great deal more to it. We followed Zedar's trail into one of those ruined cities up near the old Marag border. Belgarath had a visitor there. At least, he said he did. I didn't see anybody. At any rate, he told me that something had happened to change our plans, and that we were going to have to turn around and come on down river to Sith's Tor to rejoin all of you. He didn't have time to explain much more, because the jungles were suddenly alive with Murgos, either looking for us or for Zedar. We never found out which. Since then, we've been dodging Murgos and Nissens both, traveling at night, hiding, that sort of thing. We sent a messenger once. Did he ever get through? The day before yesterday, Polgara replied. He had a fever, though, and it took a while to get your message from him. Keldar nodded. Anyway, there were Grolims with the Murgos, and they were trying to find us with their minds. Belgarath was doing something to keep them from locating us that way. Whatever it was must have taken a great deal of concentration, because he wasn't paying too much attention to where he was going. Early this morning, we were leading the horses through a patch of swamp. Belgarath was sort of stumbling along with his mind on other things. And that was when the tree fell on him. I might have guessed, Polgara said. Did someone make it fall? I don't think so, Silk answered. It might have been an old deadfall, but I rather doubt it. It was rotten at the center. I tried to warn him, but he walked right under it.
All right,
Belgarath said. I did try to warn you.
Don't belabor it, Silk.
I wouldn't want them to think I didn't try to warn you, Silk protested. The fated tree, yep. Polgara shook her head and spoke with a profound note of disappointment in her voice. Father.
Just let it lie, Polgara,
Belgarath told her. I dug him out from under the tree and patched him up as best I could, Silk went on. Then I stole that little boat and we started downriver. We were doing fine until all this dust started falling. Now the question everyone's wondering, what did you do with the horses? Hetar asked. Sinedra was a little afraid of this tall, silent Algar lord, with his shaved head, his black leather clothing, and his flowing black scalp lock. He never seemed to smile, and the expression on his hawk-like face at even the mention of the word Murgo was as bleak as stone. The only thing that even slightly humanized him was his overwhelming concern for horses. They're all right, Selk assured him. Oh, good. I left them picketed where the Nissens won't find them. They'll be fine where they are until we pick them up. Kumo says, Murgo! Varmo says he's a rageful person when it comes to Murgos. Yes, when he was very young, Murgos killed his parents, maybe the rest of his tribe, and dragged him along for miles. He has an adopted family now, which is quite nice. And he can mentally speak to horses. Let it lie like the tree laid upon you. Sharky say, bleak. It's a good alternative to grim. Yes. All right, let's see. You said when you came aboard that Ktuchik has the orb now, Polgara said to Belgarath. How did that happen? The old man shrugged.
Beltira didn't go into any of the details.
Beltira?
All he told me was that Ktuchik was waiting when Zedar crossed the border into Cthul Murgos. That. Zedar managed to escape, but he had to leave the orb behind.
Did you speak with Beltira?
With his mind,
Belgarath answered. Did he say why the master wants us to go to the Vale?
No. It probably never occurred to him to ask. You know how Baltira is.
It's going to take months, father, Polgara objected with a worried frown. It's 250 leagues to the Vale.
Aldur wants us to go there,
He answered.
I'm not going to start disobeying him after all these years.
And in the meantime, Ktuchik's got the orb at Rak-Thol.
It's not going to do him any good, Pol. Torak himself couldn't make the orb submit to him, and he tried for over 2,000 years. I know where Rak-Thol is. Ktuchik can't hide it from me. He'll be there with the orb when I decide to go take it away from him. I know how to deal with that magician. He said the word magician with a note of profound contempt in his voice. What's Zedar going to be doing all that time? Zedar's got problems of his own. Baltira says that he's moved Torak from the place where he had him hidden. I think we can depend on him to keep Torak's body as far away from Rak-Thol as he possibly can. Actually, things have worked out rather well. I was getting a little tired of chasing Zedar anyway.
All right, have a good night, Bear. Thank you for joining us. It's good to see you. Have a good night. And thanks for the cheer. Nice. And Farmo says, good luck with the plumber bros. Doot, doot, doot. Doot, 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 doot. If any turtles start coming out of your plumbing, you should probably just leave. Just for safety. Ooh, yeah. I have 2 different cups. One of them, I have just finished a little black raspberry wine, just a small amount. It's very sweet, very tasty. And the other one was made for me by a friend who visits on the channel sometimes. That would be Bilbo Baggins' front door for the whole, the house under the hill. And here we have Smaug the dragon, one of Tolkien's representations. And on this side we have the front gate of the Lonely Mountain, with the river flowing out, smoke from the dragon steaming into the sky, and the burnt and decrepit tree. Seems like something from D&D. Well, it's something from The Hobbit, really, or representing. And now I'm probably going to be all out of focus again, but whatever. It's not so bad. And this one just contains some water. Do you play D&D? Have you played D&D? Are you a fan? I've got a game on hold right now while I get my house ready for sale, but I'm in the middle of running a game, and I've played in many. Yes, you do? Do you like to run games yourself? Are you the game master, the dungeon master, or do you prefer to? Are you more of a player? I like to play, but I don't know many people that run games very frequently, so I frequently end up running them myself. the GM curse. You wouldn't be able to keep track as a DM, but you play as a player. Are you in any right now? What characters do you play? What classes? Alright, where was I? I was getting a little tired of chasing Zedar anyway. Sinedra found all this a bit confusing. Why were they all so caught up in the movements of a strangely named pair of Angarak sorcerers and this mysterious jewel which everyone seemed to covet? Strangely named, Senedra? Your name has an apostrophe in it. Come on. Yeah, I'm currently running Curse of Strahd, which has been fun, maybe a little stressful. I'm not used to running something so dark. There's a lot of gothic horror in it, and in the past I've more run typical D&D fantasy. Falafel fantasy. Anyone here read Wheel of Time? I have heard a lot about Wheel of Time, but I haven't actually read it myself. We are currently reading The Belgariad by David Eddings. You usually play Bard and sometimes Sorceress. You've been a Rogue once. Rogue's fun. One of the longer running characters I ran was cross-class Shadow Monk and Assassin Rogue, and that was a lot of fun, especially once the abilities started synergizing well. You remember these? You've read the Belgariad? It's always nice to meet someone else who has read them before. I love these books, which is why I'm doing the stream with them. But no, I haven't actually read Wheel of Time myself. It's one of those series that's on my list, but it's also quite a longer series, isn't it? Isn't there like a dozen books or more? Or am I remembering wrong? But I have heard good things. Yeah, there's a TV show. I don't know if I've heard good things about the show itself. Yeah, it looks like there maybe are 14 books. If you can multi-class, you start as Bard and multi-class into Sorceress. Get those meta magic abilities. And Bard is fun. 5th edition Bard is quite good. In previous editions, Bard could be a little trickier because, like in 3rd and 3.5, Bard was really reliant on having a lot of different stats quite high. Like it used a lot of the different stats. So if you didn't have really well-rounded stats, it was difficult to play a Bard. And I think that rolling stats was a little more common when I played 3.5 anyways. So it was kind of like, if you were really lucky in rolling your stats, then Bard was a good choice. If you rolled a bunch of high stats. But it could be difficult if you didn't roll really well. These days, though, with 5th edition, I don't think it's really nearly as necessary. It's balanced a bit better, and I don't know. It's fun to play. We've got a Bard in our game who is very support heavy. Bane and Bless and all that. I guess it's a bit of a cross between supporting and debuffing the enemy. But he's a satyr. He's playing a satyr Bard named Capri. And that's been an entertaining character so far. I like all the characters in our current game. Oh yeah, that's right. He was kind of... Actually, he might have just taken a level of Sorcerer with the most recent level up. I'd forgotten that was happening. That was just at the end of our last game. I think he did go into Sorcerer. Though that said... Yeah, no, he did. Because it was Shadow Sorcerer, I think. I think he went with a level of Shadow Sorcerer, something like that, and it ended up being like, he hasn't blinked since that encounter with Strahd. You only have the option to play online. I haven't actually ever really played online, which is why I don't end up playing so much. I like to play with my friends. I don't really play with strangers. It's just people I know. Sharky say most Magic users could benefit from multi-classing Sorcerer. Sorcerer is one of the few classes I don't think I have ever played. I very briefly played Bard. I have played Wizard. I had a fun wizard. He was a crotchety old man. Um, very old because he was half elf, half dragon. That was back in 3.5, so you could sort of have like a half dragon template on top of it, like over top of a different race. I've played Beguiler, which was a 3.5. I've played a Knight. I've got a Paladin class, a character I want to play, like an idea for a character. Rogue Monk, Cross. I don't remember if I've played Fighter. I don't think I have. I did briefly play a Barbarian, who would have been a fun character if that game had gone longer. Oh wait, was my dwarf character in that weird underground game? He might have been a fighter. The spell slot situation side of Sorcerer is hard to manage at times. It's got benefits at like upsides and downsides. Not as much paperwork is nice. Wizard, it can get very complicated. You know, keeping track of all your spells and preparing them each day and trying to choose the right one ahead of time. Yeah, the Mushroom Cave's dwarf was a fighter. No, we got to level 3 or 4 in that game. Anyways, it's easy to sidetrack me with talking about D&D. I'm gonna go back to the book. See if we can finish a chapter. Alright. So, why were they all so caught up in the movements of a strangely named pair of Angarak sorcerers, and this mysterious jewel which everyone seemed to covet? To her, one jewel was much the same as another. Her childhood had been surrounded by such opulence that she had long since ceased to attach much importance to ornaments. At the moment, her only adornment consisted of a pair of tiny gold earrings shaped like little acorns, and her fondness for them arose not so much from the fact that they were gold, but rather from the tinkling sound the cunningly contrived clappers inside them made when she moved her head. She's got bells. Miss Sharkey, I presume, says I'd love tiny acorn earrings. They do sound very cute. All of this sounded like one of the Alorn myths she'd heard from a storyteller in her father's court years before. There had been a magic jewel in that, she remembered. It was stolen by the god of the Angaraks, Torak, and rescued by a sorcerer and some Alorn kings, who put it on the pommel of a sword kept in the throne room at Riva. It was somehow supposed to protect the West from some terrible disaster that would happen if it were lost. Curious. The name of the sorcerer in the legend was Belgarath, same as that of this old man. Curious. Is she Tinkerbell? Pretty sure. No, you got it right. I think it's all one word, one name. Tinkerbell. She's a dryad, not a fairy. So, close. I don't know how you classify it, because I think technically she's considered like full dryad, being a female of the Baroon house, but like her father is human, so. Sharky's like, but nah, couldn't be. A little bit taller than a pixie. Yeah, I think she's probably around 5 feet tall. So, the name of the sorcerer in the legend was Belgarath, the same as that of this old man. But that would make him thousands of years old, which was ridiculous. He must have been named after the ancient myth hero, unless he'd assumed the name to impress people. Once again, her eyes wandered to Garion's face. The boy sat quietly in one corner of the cabin, his eyes grave and his expression serious. She thought perhaps that it was his seriousness that so piqued her curiosity and kept drawing her eyes to him. Other boys she had known, nobles and the sons of nobles, had tried to be charming and witty, but Garion never tried to joke or to say clever things to try to amuse her. She was not entirely certain how to take that. Was he such a lump that he didn't know how he was supposed to behave? Or perhaps he knew, but didn't care enough to make the effort. He might at least try, even if only occasionally. How could she possibly deal with him if he was going to refuse flatly to make a fool of himself for her benefit? That question. How embarrassed would Garion be if he knew that Sinedra thought of him as a lump? You know what? I am certain she has told him that to his face, probably while screaming. She reminded herself sharply that she was angry with him. He had said that Queen Selmisra, He had said that Queen Selmisra had been the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, and it was far, far too early to forgive him for such an outrageous statement. Farmos thinks the idea of her screaming, "You're a lump," is pretty funny. Lump in a stump. At the bottom of the sea. She was definitely going to have to make him suffer extensively for that insulting lapse. Her fingers toyed absently with one of the curls cascading down the side of her face, her eyes boring into Garion's face. The following morning, the ashfall that was the result of a massive volcanic eruption somewhere in Cthul Murgos had diminished sufficiently to make the deck of the ship habitable again. The jungle along the riverbank was still partially obscured in the dusty haze, but the air was clear enough to breathe, and Sinedra escaped from the sweltering cabin below decks with relief. Garion was sitting in the sheltered spot near the bow of the ship, where he usually sat, and he was deep in conversation with Belgarath. Sinedra noted with a certain detachment that he had neglected to comb his hair that morning. She resisted her immediate impulse to go fetch comb and brush to rectify the situation. She drifted instead, with artful dissimulation, to a place along the rail where, without seeming to, she could conveniently eavesdrop. She and Garion have that in common. "It's always been there," Garion was saying to his grandfather. "It used to just talk to me, tell me when I was being childish or stupid, that sort of thing. It seemed to be off in one corner of my mind all by itself." Belgarath nodded, scratching absently at his beard with his good hand.
"It seems to be completely separate from you," he observed. "Has this voice in your head ever actually done anything? Besides talk to you, I mean."
Garion's face grew thoughtful. "I don't think so. It tells me how to do things,
but I think that I'm the one who has to do them. When we were at Salmisra's palace, I think it took me out of my body to go look for Aunt Pole." He frowned. "No," he corrected. "When I stop and think about it, it told me how to do it, but I was the one who actually did it. Once we were out, I could feel it beside me. It's the first time we've ever been separate. I couldn't actually see it, though. It did take over for a few minutes, I think. It talked to Salmisra to smooth things over and to hide what we'd been doing." There's the beard scratching I was talking about earlier. Yeah, he's scratching absently at his beard with his good hand, Belgarath.
"You've been busy since Silk and I left, haven't you?"
Garion nodded glumly. Most of it was pretty awful. "I burned Asherak. Did you know that?"
"Your aunt told me about it."
"He slapped her in the face," Garion told him. "I was going to go after him with my knife for that, but the voice told me to do it a different way. I hit him with my hand and said burn. That's all. Just burn. And he caught on fire. I was going to put it out until Aunt Pole told me that he was the one who killed my mother and father. Then I made the fire hotter. He begged me to put it out, but I didn't do it." He shuddered.
"I tried to warn you about that,"
Belgarath reminded him gently.
"I told you that you weren't going to like it very much after it was over."
He's talking about when Garion talked about going to get revenge for his parents' murder. Not specifically the using magic part. He can use magic with his mind. That is a relatively recent development. It only started happening midway through the book before this one. So, spoilers, sorry. If you do ever want to catch up on these books, I've got all of the previous streams for all of the books we've read posted up on YouTube under the same name, Sleet Reads. So if you're ever curious, we've got The Hobbit, some Sir Terry Pratchett books, Guards, and Weird Sisters, and the previous 2 books of this. So yeah. But yeah, you'll have a few spoilers from this book. I hope you don't mind too much. Garion sighed. "I should have listened. Aunt Pole says that once you've used this..." He floundered, looking for a word.
"Power?"
Belgarath suggested. "All right," Garion assented. "She says that once you've used it, you never forget how, and you'll keep doing it again and again. I wish I had used my knife instead. Then this thing in me would never would have gotten loose."
"You're wrong, you know,"
Belgarath told him quite calmly.
"You've been bursting at the seams with it for several months now. You've used it without knowing it at least a half-dozen times that I know about."
Garion stared at him incredulously.
"Remember that crazy monk just after we crossed into Tolnedra? When you touched him, you made so much noise that I thought for a moment you'd killed him."
"You said Aunt Pole did that."
"I lied,"
the old man admitted casually.
"I do that fairly often. The whole point, though, is that you've always had this ability. It was bound to come out sooner or later. I wouldn't feel too unhappy about what you did to Chamdar. It was a little exotic, perhaps. Not exactly the way I might have done it, but there was a certain justice to it after all."
Belgarath does that. He picks at the way that anyone else uses magic. I might have done things differently, but it's fine. The way you did it is fine, I guess. Oh, thank you for the compliment, I hope, about listening to me reading. What does... Let me see. Bursting at the seams with it. Incredulously. It's Incredulously. It means sort of like surprised disbelief. Like, I can't believe you just said, what? That's, that's being incredulous. Chucky say, we decided Hank is the sound magic makes, like a noisy goose. Yeah, somewhere. Where'd the magician goose go? Did it fall down? Oh no, there it is. Let's see. You can't really see it too well, but right here there's a wizard goose with a wand in its beak. Oh yeah, no worries. I was just spelling it out so that you would know how it was spelled. Now, I don't think it's a very commonly used word. Incredulously. Yeah. Farmouse says disbelievingly, kind of. Yeah, it's like... I think it's sort of got a little bit more of an element of surprise to it than disbelief. Like I would say it's like a shocked disbelief, or maybe not that strong, but like in my mind it's sort of like, you feel more strongly than just disbelief. So that's my interpretation, as those two mixed together. Surprisingly, yeah, a little. Like surprisingly, but disbelief, yeah. Anyways, it's always going to be there then?
Always. That's the way it is, I'm afraid.
The Princess Sinedra felt rather smug about that. Belgarath had just confirmed something she herself had told Garion. If the boy would just stop being so stubborn, his aunt and his grandfather, and of course she herself, all of whom knew much better than he what was right and proper and good for him, could shape his life to their satisfaction, with little or no difficulty. Oh, Sinedra.
Let's get back to this other voice of yours,
Belgarath suggested.
I need to know more about it. I don't want you carrying an enemy around in your mind.
It's not an enemy, Garion insisted. It's on our side.
It might seem that way,
Belgarath observed,
but things aren't always what they seem. I'd be a lot more comfortable if I knew just exactly what it is. I don't like surprises.
The Princess Sinedra, however, was already lost in thought. Dimly, at the back of her devious and complex little mind, an idea was beginning to take shape. An idea with very interesting possibilities. Sharky likes her quite a lot. Growing on you? I remember, back towards the end of book 1, when we met Mady, I think, the Cherek girl, you were saying that there weren't really very many good young female characters, that there weren't any young female characters. And, to your credit, there weren't. Not really.
because Zubret was, I don't know, manipulative and not shown as being, she was shallow, I guess. Kuma says, you find it funny how in movies, books, and real life, everything is never as it seems. Still think Eddings is a little uncharitable to Sinedra, but you like how feisty she is. Well, and bear in mind that, she's kind of part of the group now, and I would say that most characters in this group have gone through some growth at some point or another. Not all yet. So, just making sure it was, right around here. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I was just checking a previous message. Everything is never as it seems to some characters and people. Well, you want to catch people by surprise. So that was the end of chapter 1. We're 20 pages in. I am on Pacific time, and it's currently 8:30 here. How are the Sharkies feeling? Should I go a little further? How long is chapter 2? Chapter 2 would be another 13 or so pages. And yes, back to a book with chapters, now that we have finished Weird Sisters. Because most Discworld books do not have chapters. I think there are some Discworld books that do have chapters, but mostly they don't. Mrs. is feeling a little tired. Apparently both are. Well, I think we can wrap up there for tonight. But that was sort of, that was fun, having a chapter from Sinedra's point of view. Something I kind of find amusing is the way that she starts out thinking about something else. She's thinking about different people, whatever, and then somehow there's a link or something brings up Garion, and then she's like, Garion, where is he? Busy day and actually getting some sun. Yeah, it's interesting how just being out in the sun can sap your energy. I guess it's sort of the being too hot or being too cold. Both of those can be exhausting. Probably just from your body burning calories to regulate your heat. Right? Because if you're cold, then your body is burning calories to try and warm you up, and I guess if you're hot, you're probably just the sun's burning them for you. I don't know. Does your body, I guess it would be cooling, trying to keep itself cool, sweating and things like that. Oh, this thing that vaguely might relate to Garion? Now it's all about Garion. No, she's not interested in him. Not at all. She's... The only people she's fooling are Garion and herself. Probably because they're the only two young enough. And, they're the only two personally involved. So, for Kuma, my schedule here is pretty consistent. Almost, basically every Wednesday and Friday, I'll be here at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And, usually read for an hour and a half or two, something like that. And once we finish a book, we'll usually take a vote on what to read next within a selection. You're in Canada? Me too. I'm near Vancouver. Technically, it's Richmond, but yeah. Actually, that means everyone in this chat right now is in Canada. Yeah. We're on the west coast. New Brunswick, you are on the other side of the country. Up very late indeed, say Sharkies. How are things in New Brunswick? What's the weather like? You're in the Atlantic time zone, right? It's supposed to be stormy tomorrow. Sharkies have a cat named Stormy. One of Sharky's lifelong dream vacations is to all of the Maritimes. Yeah, we haven't seen Mini Cakes for a while. Who is also on that side of the world. We've been having a mix of sunny days and rainy days here over in Vancouver, which is pretty typical. Although I feel like we're getting a little more rain for June than we typically do. Oh yeah, Farmos's parents are over in Nova Scotia right now, just on a trip. It is midnight. You've been wanting to stream, you just don't know what to stream. Do you normally play games on stream? I will follow. Mr. once said, look out loud to the kids, it's looking stormy. Stormy says, meow. That is very cute. PS4, very nice. So you don't have a PC. I personally generally prefer console gaming anyways. I don't know, I like to sit on my couch and use a controller. I know you can set that sort of thing up through PC, but I also kind of... There's so much fiddliness with PC gaming, right? I mean, I've got quite a nice PC setup, but there's so much that can go wrong and updates you need to do and things like that. I kind of prefer how reliable console gaming is, right? Generally speaking, like it's pretty rare for console gaming to be as tricky as PC. You also want to do more than just game. You don't know what to stream if not on a game. Well, what do you like to do? What do you do for fun? What are your hobbies and skills? Console seems so easy, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's just... Usually with bigger PC games, it's pretty straightforward. You have updates to do and whatever, but usually launch game and everything's fine. But then you also have to kind of muck around with control schemes and things more often, I think. Consoles, you get used to the controller, and the developers are going to make the controls fit that controller, even if they do move things around a little. You have tarot cards and oracle cards. Well, I mean, I know at least one friend who did some sort of like monthly readings, but not on stream usually, but I could see that working. I would imagine there are probably people that do something similar. Sharkies bounce between the two, PC and console. Depends what you can buy a game cheaper on that at the time, though games you let the kids play are far more often console. Farmer says more control options, but then more things to learn. Pretty sure we had someone come on here once because they thought it was going to be tarot readings. Yeah, we might have had a brief visit. I mean, it does say, I guess, reading fun, so that could be just because that was the closest I could find to, book reading for Twitch. I don't think... I have learned since doing this stream that there are other people that do reading stuff, reading books on Twitch, but I don't think it is very widespread. Kuma says people who do readings do it on TikTok live a lot. Oh yeah. Well, TikTok is very prevalent these days. Mr. Sharky has been using a PS4 controller with some PC games more recently. Yeah, I think that the more recent console controllers have become easier to use with PC just because they frequently rely on Bluetooth connection, I think, so they're not too difficult to connect to a PC. I've actually got, if I do use a controller for PC gaming, I've got an Xbox controller here because it was pretty easy to set up. The whole Microsoft compatibility. Sharky say apparently Book Talks has brought some book titles out of obscurity and turned them into bestsellers. It's shocking the market influence that TikTok seems to control. It does seem to be the current way for things to go viral, is through TikTok. Definitely, like, a friend of mine who is much more active on TikTok. I don't actually even have TikTok downloaded. I just, catch some of the clips and things when they make their way to other platforms. But a friend of mine who's much more active there, like, we've been in the car and a song comes on, that some indie song that I've heard for years, and she goes, "Oh, that's been popular on TikTok recently," or "That's been everybody's learning about it through TikTok," and I'm like, "Oh, well, cool." Sharkies would complain and be all kids these days, but it's getting people to read more, so you can't be mad. Yeah, no, as long as people aren't, like, there are some harmful things, and those specific things are dumb. But as long as everybody's having fun otherwise, yeah, let people do what they do. There's a lot of different kinds of TikToks. There's book talk, witch talk, and so much more. Yeah, I definitely am not that familiar with it. But that's just, my own lack of being up on the times. Farmos likes the one with cute animal antics. Well, who doesn't? Well, I don't have anybody that is on my list streaming right now. So I think I'm going to wrap up here for the evening. But thanks for joining us, Kuma. Kuma? Is that Kuma as in bear? Because we have another bear on the stream. Because Kuma is Japanese for bear, right? Or is that Kumo? Pharmacists need to get Binibik a TikTok. What to stream? I've gone back to Assassin's Creed Valhalla recently. I don't really do game streams, but I just got the book thing. Yeah, from what I know of TikTok, it's probably pretty easy to lose hours into it. But yeah, I've been resuming my game of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I had started when it came out and then gotten sidetracked by some other stuff, some other games and things, and so I hadn't played it for quite a long time. Your whole name means Black Demon Cat. Yes, Kuma does mean bear. What is what a lot of your friends started to call you just to make it easy for them. Black Demon Cat. It's interesting that it doesn't have Neko in there then. Neko. Oh, it does. Yeah. Kuroneko Akuma. Kuroneko Akuma. I was parsing it wrong. Yeah, I got it now. Kuro is black. Neko is cat. Akuma is demon. What was I? I was looking at, like, Kurone or something. Kurone. Yeah, I think I was reading it like Kurone Koa Kuma. And so I was like, because I'm pretty sure Kurone is a word as well. And I don't know what Koa would be. And then Kuma. So I was like, it's Kurone something bear. But yeah, I was parsing it wrong. It's Kuro, black, Neko, cat, Akuma, bear. That's funny. Just, yeah. Everyone has to be saying that when they first read it too. Maybe. And then you said just to call you Kuma when I initially read it that wrong. That's funny. You went from black cat to bear. Boy. Akuma. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. It's fun to talk to you. It's always good to encounter another Canadian as well. And hopefully we'll see you next Wednesday. That's when I'll be back. So, yeah, it'll be... What is next Wednesday going to be? The 22nd. Oh, boy. Lots to do for me between now and then. Lots of packing and cleaning and such. Yeah, hopefully it's not too late for you to join us. But, yeah, we'll continue with Chapter 2 of the Magician's Gambit next Wednesday. So until then, I hope everybody has a lovely weekend. I hope that the storm is not too inconvenient over in New Brunswick. And good luck with finding something to stream. Alright, have a good night, everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye.